It's 12 a.m. and everybody in your family is already asleep. Except for you. You're still in your room hunched over a computer screen. Why? Because that one presentation that you said you would finish later has now come back to haunt you. There is no later anymore. It's all due tomorrow. You feel miserable typing away at your keyboard. Your eyes are already half closed from the sleepiness, and the progress goes by slower and slower. And then finally, it's done. A crappy amalgamation of whatever your half capacity could spew out at this time of night. This is not a situation that anybody wants to be in. But if we're honest, we've probably all found ourselves in this situation at one point or another. Our past selves' procrastination comes back to bite us in the present, and it feels terrible. And then we do it all again. Well, recently I've been taking some action in my own life to try and prevent my procrastination. And it's worked really well. All of my procrastinated homeworks and sleepless nights have disappeared. Recently, though, I've finally been able to break free of this cycle, reducing the procrastination and the sleepless nights along with it. And with this video, I intend to share the exact things I did and what worked for me so that you can do the exact same thing. Now, the advantage of watching this video as opposed to some random guru on the internet is that we're on the same boat. We're both teenagers on self-improvement who have struggled with procrastination. And I have already gone through the effort of watching all of these BS videos on YouTube and filtering through the useless information and applying all of it and seeing what actually works. So now, all you have to do is listen to this video and copy the exact steps I did so that you can eliminate procrastination too. Step 1 is to schedule it in. Right now, and this is an actionable step for you, think about the activity that you procrastinate the most. What is the important activity that you keep procrastinating that made you click on this video? Next, I want you to think of a time in your day where you can consistently do this activity. Really think about it. When? In fact, let's make it more specific. Tomorrow, when are you free and when will you be able to do this activity? And then think about where you will do this activity. Think about where and when you will go to do this activity tomorrow. And now, the final step. This is all an actionable step that I need you to do right now if you want results. Take anything that you can write this down on. This could be a piece of paper and a pen, or if you want, just open the Notes app. It doesn't really matter that much. And here's what I want you to write. Tomorrow, at exactly input your time, I will go to location and do activity. Good job. If you followed along with this activity, which I'm hoping you did, if not, just do it. It's gonna take you 10 seconds and it's very useful. But if you have, and good job, your chances of doing that activity tomorrow are, statistically speaking, greatly boosted. And if you want to boost those numbers even further, do a visualization with me right now. Think about tomorrow. When will that time be? What will you be doing? Think about that time arriving and think about, really visualize yourself going to that place at that time and opening up, whatever you need to open up and doing that activity. Really visualize it right now as I'm speaking. Where is it? When is it? Really see yourself doing the activity. Now, if you've done that as well, great. That is also a way that you can greatly boost your chances of doing that activity tomorrow. Now, since you've done these 2 actionable steps, as long as you remember to do the activity tomorrow, then very likely you will not procrastinate and you will do that activity at that time. If you're concerned that you won't remember it, just set a timer, a reminder on your phone, like 30 minutes before, and you'll remember. This is just a bite-sized version of my favorite anti-procrastination and pro-productivity tool, scheduling your entire day. Now, I know it might sound like an exaggeration to say this is, the best pro-productivity and anti-procrastination tool, but I genuinely believe it. Scheduling my day has changed my life. And the beauty of scheduling your day is that everything has a set time that it needs to be done at, and there's no ambiguity whatsoever. You see, the thing with procrastination is that it thrives on flexibility and uncertainty and the ability to say, oh, I'll do it later, right? Because if you don't have a schedule, your brain's just gonna be like, oh, well, it's not necessary that I do it now. I have time later in the day. I'll do it later in the day. And you keep saying I'll do it later in the day. But with scheduling, you have set times for everything. And that voice of procrastination is no longer able to interject because it's set in stone. You have to do it now. There's no other time to do it. And as long as you follow that schedule, that voice of procrastination won't be able to tell you, oh, we should do this later, because you will know, and you will not listen to that cope in the back of your mind. You will know this right now is the time to do it. Honestly, just the act of scheduling your entire day probably deserves its own video, and I do intend to make a video about it at some point, but right now it's not fully relevant to the point where I talk about the entire process of scheduling your entire day, so we'll move on. But I just want to say, scheduling my entire day has changed my life, and if you try it, I genuinely believe, like I seriously believe, I'm not trying to exaggerate this to get views or anything. I'm not gonna gain anything from exaggerating it in this video. I'm not trying to sell you a course or anything. But genuinely in my life, it's been extremely beneficial, and I think that if you schedule your life, download Google Calendar right now. If you schedule it, this will be one of the best productivity things you've ever done. Step 2 is to develop your discipline. If you think about it, discipline is quite simply the opposite of procrastination. Discipline is doing the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it. Procrastination is not doing the hard work because you don't feel like it. Basically, if you have discipline, you can not procrastinate. And the best part about this is discipline is something that can be trained. So if we train our discipline, we are effectively training our resistance against procrastination. Now, there are already great 3-hour, 2-hour, 4-hour long guides on discipline. For example, Hamza's video, Full Discipline Guide, and this guy called Toby has a 2-hour long guide about discipline as well. If you want to learn more, I would highly recommend watching those videos. Again, I have nothing to gain from you watching these other YouTubers, but I genuinely think that these are really amazing videos. But in this video, I still intend to give you a couple of tips that you can use to increase your discipline in a quick and effective way. The first thing I would say is find an activity you can do purely for the sake of grinding what I'll call discipline XP. You know how in video games, you grind some of the low-level mobs so that you can get some of the XP and level up? Discipline works quite the same way. A lot of the people use an example of, for example, making their bed in the morning. This is an activity, and this is important. This has to be an activity that you probably should be doing, but you don't want to do, right? But it should be pretty easy to the point where you can do it, right? And every day, you gotta grind this out, like in the video games where you grind out the lower level mobs to level up. You're basically grinding this easier task that gives you discipline XP so that you can level up your discipline. Another thing that I found really helpful was something I learned from Hamza's How to Think video. Basically, what he said was whenever you're about to be undisciplined, think to yourself, right? Think to yourself, if I do this, I'm allowed to do this, but this is going to be really undisciplined, and for doing this, I'm an undisciplined dumbass, right? Like, really say that to yourself. Allow yourself to do it, but really think to yourself, I am super undisciplined for doing this. Funnily enough, just if you can admit that to yourself, your ego will most of the time not let you do that activity. Like, think about it. If somebody tells you, you can do this, but you're super undisciplined if you do it, you're like, oh, okay, I don't want to do it anymore. Right? The reason most of us do those undisciplined things is, there's always that cope in the back of our mind that's like, oh, no, but it's not undisciplined. Like, don't think about it. No, like, I'll just do this. And then, like there's this constant voice at the back of your mind that's so creative, by the way. It's super creative, and it will find the most insane excuses for, like, literally everything. As I've been meditating and being more aware of my thoughts, it's absolutely, shocked me. I find it quite amazing, actually, how good our mind is when there is something desirable at finding all sorts of different coping mechanisms and all sorts of different excuses. Like, the level of creativity that lizard brain in the back of our mind has to basically make us do these bad habits, it's crazy. And just having the awareness to observe this is a feat in of itself. So if you can, when this cope arises, if you can identify that this is cope, I'm genuinely impressed. Most people cannot do that, and for a while I couldn't do that either. But once you identify that, say to yourself, if I do this, I am being undisciplined, and really admit it to yourself. And 9 times out of 10, your ego just won't let you do that activity, and you'll end up being more disciplined. Now, one addition I personally made to this tip to make it more effective is every time this method is successful and I end up doing the more disciplined approach, I compliment myself. I'm like, oh, that was so, like, I'm so disciplined. I'm such a Chad for doing this. I'm like so cool for doing this. Like, I've overcome my urges. You know, most people wouldn't be able to do this. The average person, like, you're so great. Like, I basically just kind of like boost my own ego and basically constantly compliment myself for having done that activity. And this is really good because it positively reinforces having done that thing, creating a positive feedback loop, making you want to do it more. And it also positively boosts your self-image and makes you see yourself as a more disciplined person, which will help with discipline as well. And the final tip I want to share with you is a way to get the work started, right? Because procrastination, as long as you get the work started, as long as you sit down and start doing the work, you've already beat the procrastination. So, the easier the work seems, the less that limbic friction is in your mind to convince yourself to sit down and do that work. So, you might have heard this tip a few times, but it's actually quite effective. Tell yourself you only have to do 5 minutes of the homework, or you only have to complete the first 2 questions, right? Do something easy. Think to yourself, oh, I can do this, right? And as you can probably guess, you sit down, you do the 5 minutes, you do the first 2 questions. And a lot of the time, you'll want to do more, right? Like, you go to your website and there's this hard work you don't want to do, but you really like, designing the decorations of the website, but that's not actually that productive, right? Sit down, tell yourself, you only need to design the decorations for now. And later you'll be like, you know what? I should edit this text as well. And I should do suddenly you'll be doing a lot more productive stuff. And let's say you do the first 2 questions and you don't want to do more. Well, then okay, you've still done 2 questions, which is better than nothing. You've still beaten the procrastination, and if you do that every day, 2 questions a day, 2 questions a day, 2 questions a day, let's say this whole thing was 10 questions and you had 5 days to do it, that'll still finish it. And that way you won't have to do the 10 questions on the final day. It's still a better alternative. And if you want to, do this, after those, let's say, 5 minutes, if you still don't want to do it, you can say, okay, no, I've done 5 minutes. I can do 5 more minutes, right? Be like, do it again. And after those 5 minutes, and be like, I can do 5 more minutes. And then you can keep doing this, repeating this. And there you go. That's all. With a combination of a good schedule and a lack of ambiguity of when the task needs to be done, combined with the discipline to know that activity is there and actually do it, with a combination of schedule plus discipline. Keep this in mind, procrastination cannot exist. We have removed all of the things that procrastination works on, and the instant you have these 2, procrastination will disappear. So I hope that this video has been extremely beneficial for you, and before you go, if you found this video useful, I want to create a proposition. First of all, since you've watched the video, speaking statistically from my viewer retention, you are in terms of attention span and watching this video, you are in the top 1% of all of my viewers. Second of all, since you've made it here, I want to invite you to one of the biggest productivity opportunities of your entire summer. Basically what we've created is a Google Sheet where every day you have to log how many hours you worked for. And what does this do? Well, quite simply put, it tracks your total hours, your average hours worked per day, and then, here's the best part, you get to compete with many other like-minded people like yourself who are doing the same work, and you get to compete with them. And these logged hours, they get inputted into a built-in ranking system where you get ranked and you get to compete with these other people. Competition is one of the biggest drivers and motivators, and we already have I think over 15 people inside of this event. And if you want to join and absolutely boost your productivity to the next level and even compete with me, well, then go to the first link in the description, and there will be a very simple Google form. You just need to enter like your name and email address so that we can add you to the event and send you the link, right? It's that simple. And you'll be in the event. And I promise you, if you join this event and take it seriously, you will not regret it, and it will boost your productivity a ton. Well, that's all. Thank you for watching. If you found this useful, like, subscribe. I appreciate a comment as well, and I'll see you next time.